Hello and welcome to this KAM webinar where I'm going to attempt to size up the on-trade as it looks in a post-pandemic, post-Brexit world, looking specifically at the category that is very close to my heart, and that is the category of wine. I'm Katy Moses, I'm founder and MD of KAM, and we are a specialist research and insight agency specializing in the on-trade and also food and drink wherever you may well consume that. So just to give us a little bit of context, let's talk about how we're feeling in the UK right now. And this particular word cloud is from YouGov's tracker from May 2022. So that's, if you're watching, whenever you're watching this, this is about a month ago, May 2022. The word chart that demonstrates how UK adults are feeling has pretty much slipped back to pre-pandemic words and pre-pandemic thoughts. So you've got around 47% of people who feel happy, 42% of people that feel stressed, 34% that feel frustrated. There's a couple of points to note here for me. One is that happiness levels are much higher now this time of year than they were at the same time last year. Loneliness levels have gone back to sort of pre-COVID levels, but frustration, degrees of boredom, all of those generally reflect what a cheery bunch we are here in the UK generally. So let's look at lockdown legacies. I want to cover some of the macro consumer trends that we feel are here to stay. We know that it takes about 6 weeks to create a habit. Obviously, the time that we've all spent in lockdown was far, far greater than that. So a lot of the habits that we've picked up during those times seem to be here to stay for quite some time going forward. Number one, first trend here is the deregulation of life. So that idea that the short-term restrictions that we had have actually led to some of the long-term changes in how we do things. We all know that we are living life more digitally, even as we hopefully come out of the pandemic and hopefully we're seeing the back of lockdowns. We are still having meetings and exercise classes, and even chatting to our doctors is now happening a lot more online than it was previously. People are eating earlier, which is an interesting sort of knock-on effect of the working from home, because obviously you haven't got that commute that we're also used to doing, or that most people are used to doing, no matter how long or short that might be. That also means that sleeping patterns are changing. So actually we are tending to go to bed earlier and get up earlier. So there've been some really big macro changes from that idea that we needed to be staying either in or close to our homes. And of course, that idea that we were staying close to homes means that our lives have become a lot more local. So we've got a bit more reliance on and support for local businesses. We've obviously seen that shift to at-home working patterns that doesn't seem to be, or that's dissipating somewhat, but it doesn't seem to be going away. And then, of course, we've got the increased desire to support local and independent businesses. The rise in nesting that you can see on this particular presentation is that in the first lockdown, the average UK household spent £4,000 on DIY and improving their personal home space. We've also, of course, got that idea that we've got this more on-demand lifestyle now. There's been a massive take-up of digital and remote services. So whether that's delivery, whether that's entertainment subscriptions, whatever that might be, there is this feeling now that as consumers, we want what we want when we want it, how we want it. We need to be able to get what we want on demand. And then the fourth trend here that I wanted to cover is just the idea that belts are tightening. We are acutely aware of the fact that there's a cost of living crisis. We're acutely aware of the fact that it's going to be affecting different people in different ways. And the tightening of these belts has led to a UK low of -40 in the consumer confidence for May 2022. And that's surpassing the previous record low of 39 in 2008. And that, of course, was when we had the recession. So let's talk about the on-trade landscape. Let's talk about how that has changed, how it continues to evolve, and what effect that might have in general, but specifically on wine as well, because you're going to see some wine-specific insight that we conducted very shortly. So 1 in 4 customer visits to pubs and bars no longer contain any alcohol. That's 329 million visits per year, and that was in 2019. That will be higher now because we've seen the low and no category come on and increase in these couple of years. The worry here for the industry, for operators, for suppliers, is that 1 in 5 people who don't drink alcohol when they go to a pub or a bar default to tap water. So that's 20%. That is a really large number of people who we are not only not gaining the trade and the spend from, but we're actually not making their experience much better anyway either. Gen Z, we know, have a bit of a different relationship with alcohol. 2 in 5 of them describe themselves as teetotal. That's more than twice the number of UK adults in general. Gen Z are drinking low and no drinks quite often alongside alcoholic drinks to sort of regulate, moderate, and drink mindfully. So it's not all about all or nothing. It's about having that sort of mindful approach towards your drinking. And 1 in 4 have purchased a low or a no brand in the last 12 months. And this is our Gen Z research, which again is a year or 2 old now. We've got some new research coming out in the next week or so, so we will see how that's changed, but I can only really see from the anecdotal evidence I've seen previously that increasing. Hospitality now needs to maximize every single day part. We do not have any room for empty space that customers cannot be using and enjoying. The alcohol-free push, the alcohol-free category, gives us a really good opportunity to increase the enjoyment and better the experience that the customer has when we look at occasions like increased remote working from home. So you've got pub desks, we're having business meetings out, we're having weekday night lunches out with our clients and customers, and of course with our colleagues as well. Equally, alcohol-free and the experience that it can provide gives us an opportunity to drive footfall at quieter times of the day. So breakfast, so brunch, so mid-morning. So the areas that perhaps traditionally we wouldn't have tried to fill, we now have an opportunity to make those occasions better than they have been in previous times. There is a watch out for me though on the alcohol-free side of things. Alcohol-free wine awareness is actually quite low. So only 2 in 3 people have ever heard of alcohol-free wine, and only 1 in 2, so it's 50%, are aware of sparkling wine. So there is still a bit of an education piece to do there. And this is insight from our 2021 low and no report, of which we have 2022 coming out in June this year. So hot off the press, that will be available to you at the beginning of July. My considerations then, just for this particular section, are we putting enough focus on the growing low in alcohol occasion? I would suggest no, not necessarily. Do your low and no brands appeal to Gen Z, and should they? Gen Z, I know that a lot is made of them, and sometimes people say, I'm fed up with hearing about Gen Z. They are our future customers, and they are the people that are going to be making the decisions as to where these categories go. So we've got to make sure that our brands are appealing to them. And then the other question, just to flag, is wine falling behind other categories in offering a low or no alternative? We know that beer has a lot more recognition, and we know that spirits have got a lot going on in regards to innovation. So for me, we need to be looking at that innovation in low and no in wine, if we possibly can. So the second point I wanted to make is that even in the on-trade, default has become the digital. Getting ordering and paying via digital right is absolutely essential. It's no longer nice to have. It's no longer something that people might play around with, might tinker around the edges with. It's something that people want. And we have to remember that paying the bill at the end of a pub, bar or restaurant visit is the pain point. That's the bit that customers tell us they find the hardest. So has having a venue which offers mobile phone ordering and payment become more or less important to you over the last 12 months? This is a question we asked as part of our plan to plate report, tracking the customer journey within hospitality. 52% of Gen Z said yes, more important. 24%, even of the older generation of 55 plus, said yes, it's become more important. So it's just something we have to nail now. We don't have that option to get this wrong anymore. We've had our chance to practice in the pandemic. Now we've got to put it into practice and in a positive way. So we also asked whether customers would prefer physical printed menus or digital menus on phones and tablets. And you can see there, the long and short answer is we need both, really. We need to be able to keep our Gen Zs happy who want their digital menus. We need to keep our older generation together, with us on our side for physical menus. But then we've also got to understand that some people like to have both. And actually it does differ by demographic type, but also by occasion. We know that families, for example, actually prefer to have the digital menus. And I'm presuming that is because their children, of course, are digital natives. We also know that digital is now a central part of customer communication. So as part of a research report called Wine Decisions 2022, released in May this year, that we conducted with Hallgarten and Novum, and also Harry Crowther from the wonderful Grain and Grape, we learned then that 33% of wine drinkers are influenced by social media to try specific wines. And that is absolutely massive. And then look at that Gen Z figure, 67% of Gen Zs have been influenced by social media to try specific wines. Social media has also influenced the wine drinker's choice of color, of grape, of brand, of country, of region. We have the opportunity to not only influence our wine drinkers, but also to make sure that we are educating our wine drinkers and we are letting them know with each of these areas why it matters, what difference it makes to taste and to overall enjoyment of the experience. Now we're going to come on to healthy world and healthy me. One of the things that's happened during the pandemic is that we've actually seen a desire for health and wellness to not only increase in importance to consumers, but for it to be something that is all-encompassing. It's not just about sustainability here, about health of my body here, about well-being and drinking here. It's actually that idea that I want everything to be healthier, and whether that's healthier venues. So, cleanliness and hygiene is now still, even, coming out of this pandemic, is in the top 3 factors that drive venue choice. Food hygiene ratings have grown in importance, especially with Gen Z, and that's not just in physical bricks and mortar stores, that's also for online. And then 54% of people told us that they were making a conscious effort to eat more healthily, 37% are making a conscious effort to look after their mental health. And the positive thing here is that generally we see 95% of people think that pubs are good for mental health and loneliness. It's where I can go to be with my friends, where I can go to talk to people. It's where I can go to get out of my own head and out of my own house. So we are seeing this idea of a holistic point of view over health. People want to drink less, but better. 35% of people told us that they are willing to pay more for an adult soft drink, such as a ginger ale or a kombucha, over a more traditional soft drink as a cola or a lemonade. So we've got this continued opportunity that this idea of less but better is giving us to put a more premium offer out into the industry and out into our consumers. Again, this is from the research that we conducted with Hallgarten and Novo and Grain and Grape. We asked how important are the following when consumers choose which wine to order in the on-trade. Now, natural, sustainable, organic, you can read that for yourselves. And I really want to make a strong caveat here. 53% of people who said natural probably don't understand exactly what natural wines means. What they do know is they want things that they are consuming to be as close to natural in the greater, wider sense of the word as possible. And that's why we're seeing vegan and biodynamic and organic and sustainable and natural come up, because they lump all of that in with just a better way to manufacture, create and consume wine. 74% of people also said that they would like pubs and restaurants to make it clearer which wines on their menus actually have these words against them. And I would argue that we should be going further. Rather than just putting these words on those menus, we should be putting exactly what these words mean, what the benefits are, and why consumers should be choosing drinks with these words associated to them. So what does the health trend brand mean for your, what does the health trend mean for your brands? How should you be interacting with the world of health and well-being? How should you be communicating that to your customers? And we're thinking personal, physical, mental, planet. It's now a holistic view. Consumers are making the link between what they eat and drink and how it affects the planet. So healthy applies to the planet as well as their bodies. So we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about organic, we're talking about anything that impacts food, drinks, buildings. How are you contributing to that conversation? And then consumers could refuse to interact with brands who aren't kind to them, their health, and the world. And we know that, we're seeing that. We've seen some backlash already from some brands who didn't perhaps behave themselves in the way that would have been becoming to them in the pandemic. That's only going to get more and more important as we go on in time. And then finally, the in-venue experience has just simply never, ever been more important. We have a lot of work to do to get people off their sofas and into our pubs and into our bars and into our restaurants. Here we asked, what is it that Brits liked about staying in rather than going out? So this was after the first 2 lockdowns, when people had modified their behavior somewhat. We said, what are the bits you did enjoy about staying in? And you can see there, if you go right down to the bottom, a more relaxed environment was the most important thing. And I think that's something we've got to bear in mind, is we've got to make people comfortable. They, the standing on ceremony and uncomfortable chairs, none of that is what we're looking for now. We need to be able to make people feel comfortable in our place. They've also enjoyed cooking their own food, and a lot of us did, and we really picked up some tips, and some people have certainly honed some skills. So we really need to make sure that any food we are giving to our customers in pubs, bars, restaurants, it's got to have the quality up here, and the server's got to be up here. Everything has to be fantastic, because other people's skills have increased as these pandemic lockdowns occurred. I'll leave you to read the rest, but certainly there's a lot of areas here that Brits liked about staying in. We need to make sure that we can compete with them, or that we can emulate them and emulate them better, because as far as customers are concerned, whether they have a memorable experience or not, that is down to the operator. 60% of people that we spoke to said that it's the venue's responsibility to ensure they have a memorable experience. There is no room for mediocrity at the moment, and possibly never again. So what's the current experience like for wine drinkers? 1 in 3 told us that they don't feel confident when ordering wine in a pub, bar, restaurant, and 1 in 9 feel intimidated. Again, this is the research we conducted with Hallgarten and Novum, Grain and Grape, and I just feel like in 2022 we shouldn't have over 10% of the population feeling intimidated when they order wine. We shouldn't have 33% of the population not feeling confident when ordering wine. If they feel embarrassed, they will go to default. They will take the easiest to pronounce, or they will take the one that they understand. We need to be making this category more accessible for drinkers. 18% feel too embarrassed to ask advice or recommendations from a member of staff. Again, why? Why is that? We need to be making it clearer that we are open and that we're accessible and that we're the experts, and we would like to share that expertise with our customers. 35% say the words used to describe wines are too confusing and ambiguous. My only surprise there is that it's only 35%. I think quite often we get caught up in using overly descriptive words that we know we get, but possibly other people don't. And then 70%, which is massive, think that pubs and bars don't provide enough information when making for customers to make decisions when ordering wine, and that's at 43% still, even for restaurants, where you are of course more likely to have a sommelier or somebody who can explain the category to you. So what can you as wine suppliers, you as operators, us as industry participants, what can we do to support people in achieving outstanding customer experience when it comes to wine every single time? How can we make sure that the category is accessible? How can we encourage consumers to be brave and experimental? We know that they will default to a wine that they know, and that may well be one that they get at home, where there's no price differentiation and therefore no real different experience. So we need to encourage consumers to be brave and to be experimental. We also need to, and for me this is probably the key, the linchpin of it all, which is ensure that staff are knowledgeable and confident and competent when talking about wine. If you use this QR code now, you will be able to download this presentation that I first delivered at the London Wine Fair. And if you have any questions, any queries, or if there's anything else that KAM as a research and insight and content agency could do to help you, there is my email address. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this webinar.